I will pull up the system and we will jump in. So spending the time here in our Agile demo instance, want to start by looking at our risk overview dashboard. And this is focused on our information and technology risk management program. And this first tab here is showing us our program at large, looking at our risk register with these top two reports showing us how we have at a macro level reduced risk across the different topical areas within the organization. And more importantly, though, we have in the system that same report that Giovanni was showing us and speaking to a moment ago, showing the roll-up of all of this risk information into our information and technology risk taxonomy. So in this example, we have our identity and access management risk category, which has 4 different risk topics. And we can see for each of these, the inherent and residual risk, both qualitatively and quantitatively, to help us understand where there are pockets of increased risk within the organization. So we can see in our example that the authentication and authorization risk topic has a lot going on behind that we really need to make sure that we understand, have the appropriate controls in as an organization. But this allows us to take that information, populate that slide, and have those conversations with upper management, with our board of directors, and let them know, where are we spending our money and what is the impact to reducing risk within the organization. It's also worth mentioning that we have taxonomies for enterprise and operational risk for folks as they start to mature their programs, and those can be nested to say that information and technology risk rolls into a broader enterprise risk framework.
Hey, Jay, really quick, speaking of that, question came in. It says, I noticed that you have a 4 medium high there, assuming you have a 1 to 5 scale. Is it possible to use multiple scales or to have a 1 to 3 translated, or could you use just like a high, medium, low or high, moderate, low?
That's a great question, Cliff, and I'll actually maybe answer that with the visual on this next tab, where we'll have our residual risk heat map. And so in our demo instance, we have a 5x5 risk matrix, but this is entirely configurable and can be set up to align to your current risk methodology. So whether you're using a 3x3 or 4x4, or even a asymmetrical matrix like a 4x5, which we've seen with some of our clients. So it's incredibly flexible to align with your risk methodology. And we see this also as a great opportunity that if you're going through your journey and resetting the foundations of your IT risk management framework, this is a good time to revisit those impact and likelihood scales and make sure the organization feels good about that methodology.
Appreciate it.
So this particular tab is showing us all of the risks within our organization. So the previous tab was looking at the risk register and the universe of risk. This is looking at all the different risks that we've assessed for our applications, our processes, our facilities, and the like. And we can see that generally speaking, we've done a good job in reducing the risk. We only have 37 that are in that high residual risk bucket. But we can actually drill down on these reports and say, well, show me something like SAP financial accounting. And this entire dashboard refreshes and shows us the information that's only specific to SAP financial accounting. And we can see that generally speaking, they're doing fairly well, but there are these 2 residual risks that are in this high bucket. There are 5 almost certainly certain likelihood and 5 critical impact. And we can drill in on any one of these squares to see what is that data. So if we click here, we can see that there are 2 risks for SAP financial accounting that are in this 5 out of 5 high residual risk bucket. And that includes our user access review control and risk and our termination process risk. And when we click into this record, we can start to understand, well, what is this? This is termination process. The residual and the inherent risk are the same. That's indicative to me that there's potentially a control failure. And if we come down here, we can actually see that our control is in this not implemented state. So we have the ability to bring together the risk and compliance worlds where we can inform our risk posture based on our control and compliance statuses. So in this instance, because we have a control that's been deemed to be not implemented, our residual risk matches our inherent risk. Now, if we take a moment and kind of traverse through the compliance side of the house, we can see we have our control for SAP financial accounting termination process. We can see their expected control from what we would call baseline control procedure. And this is what do we expect of you based on the laws, regulations, internal policies and standards to the organization. And then they have the ability to document their actual control procedure. Now, this control procedure seems like it's likely designed adequately, but we can actually see here under some of our control tests that has been found to be not operating effectively. So it's an ineffective control. So that's really why this particular control is in that not implemented state. Spending just another brief moment, kind of continuing the compliance traversal here. If we take this one step higher to a control objective, this is the high level expectation that we have a termination process control throughout the organization. This is where we start to see the different laws, regulations, and best practices. And we can see those by scrolling down to the bottom of this record. And there are 36 citations. These citations are ServiceNow's term for the different sentences, paragraphs, and sections of the different laws, regulations, and best practices. And we can see here in our demo instance, we have regulatory guidance from CIS, from Cloud Security Alliance, ISO, CMMC. I believe we have some NIST and others down below. So it gives us all of that information that we as an organization need to consider when looking at our compliance, which in turn can help us understand our risk within the organization. And just kind of quickly wrapping with another dashboard. Much like we saw our risk for an individual application, we can look at our compliance and say, across all those different laws and regulations, how are we doing for one in particular based on our program? So maybe we need to be able to see quickly how we're doing for ISO or NIST or GDPR or others, and maybe we want to see the program at large. In short, there's a lot of reporting capabilities within ServiceNow, and it's a better together world when you bring your risk and compliance programs together with ServiceNow Integrated Risk.